Brent Venables was embarrassed about this defensive performance for Oklahoma in 2022. They're definitely going to need to ratchet that up in 2024, but why not field a better defense in 23 and contend for a Big 12 championship? We got Parker Thune on the line, KREF Sports, and also OU Insider. Parker, we always appreciate you stopping by, breaking things down for us. The rush defense, once Oklahoma got into Big 12 play, not the best at over 5 yards per carry and 213 yards given up per game to Big 12 opponents. Massive changes along the defensive front that should bolster both the ability to make plays in the backfield, but also the depth issue as well.
Yeah, I think the big question for this defense and really this entire Oklahoma roster is the interior defensive line and who emerges and who solidifies themselves as starters and reliable contributors at that position. Now, you look at defensive end, Oklahoma's got a ton of options. Returning starters and Ethan Downs and Reggie Grimes are going to be pushed for their roles. Downs is a preseason all Big 12 guy. Really like what he brings to the table. High motor player, has the ability to pressure the passer as well as to stop the run. Grimes is probably the guy more so that's in danger of losing his spot because you got a hard charging rising sophomore in R. Mason Thomas, who really flashed last year as a freshman. You got two high ceiling incoming transfers and experienced P5 football players in Trace Ford, formerly of Oklahoma State, and Rondell Bothroyd, who comes to OU via Wake Forest. So defensive end is not really a position of need or a position of concern right now for Oklahoma, but a defensive tackle, they bring in Tennessee transfer Dejon Terry to try and bolster that rotation. Texas State transfer Devon Sears also in the mix. And then their latest addition is Utah State transfer Philip Paya. That's in addition to some returners such as Isaiah Coe, the redshirt senior, Jordan Kelly, a sixth-year senior, and a couple of younger guys in redshirt sophomore Kelvin Gilliam and true sophomore Grayson Halton. So no shortage of options, just a real shortage of proven depth at defensive tackle. So that's going to be the real question for Oklahoma. Who emerges and separates themselves from the crowd at defensive tackle?
Brent Venables called the linebacker unit the heart and soul of this team, which I guess makes Danny Stutzman just the heartbeat of this team. 126 tackles last year, so he leads the group. Parker, what is your assessment of the linebacking core?
Yeah, well, you can Sharpie Stutzman in as a starter, obviously, a guy that had to do it all for Oklahoma's defense a year ago and did for the most part. And he wasn't perfect, not immune to mistakes by any stretch of the imagination, but a guy that in terms of his maturity has made leaps and bounds under Venables' direction. And as he enters his junior season, is the odds-on favorite to lead this program in tackles once again. Dasan McCullough, the Indiana transfer in his sophomore year, is expected to be the starter at that cheetah position in Venables' defense. And then the other linebacker spot comes down to either Ferris State transfer and two-time Division II national champion Connor Neer or rising sophomore Jaron Kanik, who's one of the fastest linebackers in the entire country, clocked a 10.28 100-meter dash in high school and runs one of the fastest 40 times on the entire roster. So if I had to bet right now, Mark, I'd say you're looking at Stutzman, Kanik, and McCullough as your starting linebackers for Oklahoma in 2023. But there is a ton of depth, so much more than there was a year ago. And Brent Venables made mention of this at Big 12 Media Days. They were really only playing four linebackers last year. Deshaun White, David Agwebu, Stutzman, and then Kanik when they absolutely had to. But really, really like the second string, if you will, for Oklahoma at linebacker when you look at Kobe McKenzie, who showed flashes last season and has been really good thus far in spring and summer. Kip Lewis is a rising sophomore. Shane Witter is coming off a shoulder injury, but he's a senior to be. And then the Sooners brought in a quartet of really exciting young freshmen in Sammy Omasigo, a top 5 national linebacker prospect. Lewis Carter, who Brent Venables said he thought was the best player in the state of Florida as a high school senior. Phil Picciotti, the state of Pennsylvania. And then in-state late riser Taylor Heim, who didn't get his Oklahoma offer until a week before National Signing Day, but has actually proven to be one of the fastest players on the entire roster. Yeah, right up there with Kanik. So there's a lot to be excited about with this Oklahoma linebacker core.
Much like the wide receiver position, gaining a lot of attention from fans because of the obvious excitement factor. On the defensive side, it's that guy that can come off the edge and wreak havoc that seems to cause a stir. Has Dasan McCullough gained the most attention? It seems like he has gained the most buzz because of what he did at Indiana and because of his ability to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I think the Sooners see McCullough less of a pass rusher and more so of a do-it-all second-level defender, a guy that has the athleticism to cover wide receivers and the size to cover tight ends. Obviously, somebody that can be an enforcer for a running back taking a swing out of the backfield. But as far as the pass rush goes, I think I mentioned our Mason Thomas, definitely a guy that I think is going to take a major jump in terms of his production in 2023. I would project he leads the team in sacks if I had to throw darts right now. And then incoming freshman PJ Adebawore, who was a 5-star prospect in the class of 2023, the number 2 edge rusher in America. Huge get for Miguel Chavis in his first full recruiting cycle as a Power 5 on-field assistant coach. He's somebody that before long is just going to be too good to keep off the field. An absolute physical freak, wingspan north of 84 inches, Mark, and can clock under a 4.6 in the 40-yard dash, excuse me. So really a guy that brings a little bit of everything to the table, and there's no like that's the type of player that offensive tackles, regardless of how experienced they are going to have one heck of a time trying to block, because he can beat you with power, he can beat you with speed, he can beat you with finesse.
Parker, every time you drop another set of metrics concerning the athleticism of these defensive athletes, it makes me think about Brent Venables not necessarily liking what he saw when he first hit campus, but him changing that factor very quickly athletically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been the name of the game for Oklahoma over the first 18 months of Venables' tenure as head coach. Turnover, healthy turnover, weeding out the dead weight on this roster. I mean, I'll call a spade a spade. There was a lot of dead weight, especially on the defensive side of the ball, among scholarship players that realistically were not good enough to be playing the caliber of football that Brent Venables is trying to play defensively at Oklahoma. So he's made an effort to separate the wheat from the chaff. He said it at Big 12 Media Days. Look, I gave guys 12 months to sort things out, and if they couldn't sort things out, then we were going to explore other options, and the Sooners have. They've turned over that. I mean, they have completely flipped things on their head in terms of the overall athleticism defensively and the depth at each individual position group amongst players that you can be confident in, right? And I think that I look at the linebacker group, which I just mentioned, as a perfect example of this phenomenon, if you will. Last year, the Sooners only had 4 linebackers that they were confident playing in game situations. I think you're close to having 8 or 10 of those guys in 2023.
Technically speaking, 5 of the top 7 corners leave. Woody Washington, statistically the most proven, coming back, 6 pass breakups, 67 tackles. So how does the cornerback position line up?
Yeah, Washington, he was a guy that gave a hard look to jump into the NFL, excuse me, after his redshirt sophomore season in 2021, which was kind of his breakout campaign after a strong second half to the 2020 season. But stuck things out for another year at Oklahoma. He's battled injuries, but when he's been healthy, he's been Oklahoma's most capable cover corner. Now, I think the question is who starts opposite him. For my money, I like rising sophomore Gentry Williams, multi-time, or now that I think about it, I don't know if it's the case that he won the 100 meters in the state of Oklahoma multiple times, but I know he's a former state champion in the 100 meters in the state of Oklahoma, dealt with an ACL tear in high school, has since, or really long since, fully recovered and contributed meaningfully on special teams and situationally on defense last year for Oklahoma as a true freshman, but a guy that can run as well as anybody on the roster. And he's going to be in a battle with Kendall Dolby and a couple of exciting true freshmen in Josiah Wagner and Makari Vickers, in my mind, to start opposite Washington. So be interested to see how that battle shakes out, but Washington's one of your starters, and I think it's either Williams or Dolby on the other side, at least to start the campaign.
Fans are always excited to see the new guy, and Peyton Bowen has given great reason to be excited. But of course, he's has a lot to learn, and he's new to the team at safety. Reggie Pearson brings a lot of experience and a big hitting reputation in from Texas Tech. Your thoughts about the safeties?
Yeah, it's going to be Billy Bowman and Reggie Pearson, I believe, that start the season as the Sooners' top two safeties on the depth chart. Bowman, of course, had a breakout sophomore year for Oklahoma a season ago. And Pearson, he's played at Wisconsin. He's played at Texas Tech. I believe was an all Big 12 player last year for the Red Raiders. So a guy that brings a ton of experience to the table, is heading into his 6th year of college ball. And Robert Spears Jennings as a rising sophomore is another guy that I could see getting some run. Key Lawrence, the Tennessee transfer in his 3rd year with the Oklahoma program, somebody that should factor into the mix as well. But there will come a time, Mark, there will come a time where Peyton Bowen becomes undeniable. That might be week 1. It might be week 12. It could be anywhere in between. But make no mistake, when we are sitting here 2 years from now to preview the 2025 season, we will be talking about Peyton Bowen as one of the most talented football players in the entire country. There's a reason this kid was a 5-star prospect. He's been all that and more since he showed up to campus at Oklahoma in January. And I fully expect that even as a true freshman and even in a deep safety room, there will come a point in time at which you simply cannot keep that kid off the field.
We will not forget about special teams. Parker, we've got Michael Turk, of course, one of the very best in college football, moving on after he averaged over 46 yards per kick. Zach Schmidt, interesting statistic here where he hit 7 of 9 from 40 to 49 yards, but more inconsistent from closer range. But of course, he is back.
Zach Schmidt is back, and he's going to be pushed for kicking duty by JUCO transfer Reddy Mustafaraj, as well as redshirt freshman Gavin Marshall, an IMG Academy product. Schmidt was 12 of 18 on field goal attempts a year ago, so there's room for improvement there. Hopefully that improvement happens if you're a Sooner fan, but if not, the Sooners have a couple options that they can fall back on if Schmidt is inconsistent to start the year. At punter, you do have to replace Turk. That is much easier said than done. But they brought in Central Michigan transfer Luke Elzinga, who's going to battle with Arizona State transfer Josh Plaster for starting punter duty at Oklahoma. Longtime long snapper Casey Kelleher, who was, if you can believe this, a 5-year starter for this football program. He is out the door, going to be replaced by redshirt freshman Bennett Anderson. And I mean, I don't know who's holding the kicks, Mark. I don't know how valuable that information is, but with Turk graduated, they'll have to figure that out as well. I have no doubt that they will.
Turk has obviously established some kind of pipeline, some kind of punting pipeline to Arizona State.
Yeah, so it was funny because he and Josh Plaster transferred from Arizona State in the same offseason. So in the same offseason, Arizona State lost 2 punters to Oklahoma, which is just kind of a bizarre deal, bizarre coincidence, if you will, or maybe the exact opposite of a coincidence. But you look beyond that in the return game, there are several contributors that are likely going to get their opportunities to return kicks and punts. Marvin Mims returned the majority of the punts for Oklahoma in his 3 seasons on campus. I would imagine Drake Stoops is somebody that gets looks. Peyton Bowen, even as a freshman, will certainly get looks. Jalil Farouk is somebody that's experienced in the return game. And especially on the kick return side of things, I do think there are several youngsters that are going to be in the mix from the get-go, including Bowen and including Jaquays Petaway.
We know you enjoy the personnel breakdown with Parker Thune. You can catch him each and every day on KREF Sports, Monday through Friday, 11, that would be noon Central Time, noon to 3, OU Insider on Rivals as well. Anything else that you've got working in terms of your platforms that people need to know about, Parker?
No, I think that about covers it all, Mark. OUinsider.com is where you should head if you're a Sooner fan and you want all the inside scoop on OU football and recruiting. It's on the Rivals Network. My colleagues Brandon Drum, Jesse Crittenden, and I bring you all the latest up-to-date information every single day, 365 days a year. So if you're an Oklahoma fan, certainly head there. And if you live in the state of Oklahoma, or even if you don't, tune in to KREF weekdays 12 to 3 to hear me co-host alongside Mike Steely, as well as Tyler McComas for the 2 to 3 p.m. hour on Locked In, which is an hour of nothing but football recruiting talk. So KREF Sports is where you're going to want to tune into 1400 AM if you're in the Oklahoma City metro area, or you can hit the FM frequency 94.7. Download the KREF app if you are not an Oklahoma native but still want to get the best Sooner talk on a daily basis.